Mitch, what do you do in film?
I'm a writer, director, occasional producer of films outside just my own. Most recently, I just wrote and directed a film called Marrow with Danielle and Michael Ironside. That'll be playing this weekend at Texas Frightmare.
Nice.
And then we'll be taking it to Fort Lauderdale, Florida in August for Popcorn Frights Film Festival, which I'm really excited about. Not sure if I'm supposed to say that yet, but whatever, I just did, so here we are.
We have 2 subscribers. Maybe they'll spread the word.
Hey, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's get you up to 10, you know?
10 would be lovely.
Yeah.
But then when we get 10 subscribers, the things that you release could get out there in the world.
Word starts to get out.
What is the focus of Marrow? What are you trying to do there?
You know, I'm just trying to create a great film, you know, and this is a horror film, which I don't think should come as a surprise. I think most people in Dallas are probably focused on the horror genre.
I think so.
Which is a great genre to be focused on. It's just a genre that makes the most money, especially for low-budget filmmakers.
Okay.
But you know, also like with horror films, I love them. I love them. I try to like separate myself from them for a while, like the pretentious artist who didn't want to be the horror guy. But actually, I think the pretense kind of lends itself to the horror genre right now because I don't know what you look at, what articles you read, what videos you watch,
Sure.
but there's been this big thing lately, and I think there was a big one that came out when the trailer for the new Harry Potter series came out.
Okay.
But people are like, you know, really up in arms about how films don't look like films anymore, how they're flat, how they lack style, and you know, things of that nature. And I think that horror films are kind of like the final frontier of things that, you know, not only should you have a style to them, but you're expected to. I think it's the last genre that's out there right now where you're really allowed to experiment.
Okay.
Because horror fans, they always want something new. They want new things to look at. They don't want it to just be like the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And so horror, to me, I think is like the last genre that exists right now where you really get to experiment. And not only do you get to, but you're expected to. And I just think that's really cool. I think that horror is a great genre for that.
No, it's cool. Do you remember what the first horror film you saw was?
Oh, God. I can't think of what the first horror film was that I saw. I think, you know, I remember like, you know, my parents watching Ghost, which isn't really a horror film.
No, it's more comedy.
But the ones, you know, where the demons come up and take people to hell, like I remember seeing that. And
Yeah, the end.
Until I was like in my mid-teens, I thought that was like all Ghost was until I actually watched Ghost. And I was like, oh, wait, there's more to this and that. And I remember like seeing my mom watching A Nightmare on Elm Street too. I remember coming in, I was supposed to be asleep, and I remember coming in on the scene where Freddy, you know, has his hands outstretched, his arms are like, you know, elongated, and dramatically long, and he's scraping the wall. So I remember things like that. The first horror film I'm sure there are others before this, but the first one I remember just like really sitting down and watching was Scream.
Okay.
Once it came on VHS in '96.
Right.
And that kind of like, you know, I read the Goosebumps books and I watched the Goosebumps series, things like that. But that's the first like adult horror film I remember watching and just being entranced by it and going like, oh, this could be something I might want to do someday.
There you go. Did you already know that you were artistic?
No, not really. I liked writing stories. My grandmother bought me a typewriter. And because I loved reading books, you know, and you know, my mom has a story that she loves to tell anybody who will listen about how she would like try to read me books when I was a baby, when I was like 2 or 3 or whatever, and they were picture books, but I wouldn't let her read me the story. I'd kind of look at the pictures and like tell my own story.
Okay.
Based off of that, she'll tell it to anyone who will listen. But I don't know. I didn't think I knew what an artist was until I was really in my teens, you know. So the idea of having artistic abilities, like I thought that strictly meant just, you know, like being a great painter, maybe, or something along that line. I never really thought of, you know, filmmaking or writing as an art until I got a little bit older and I had somebody teach me the value of cinema as an art form. And,
no, I mean, you're thinking about painting and then kind of you're using different tools to create a horror movie than you would to create a painting, but it's still something that came from within your mind that you're putting out on paper. What have you found that's really challenging about taking your ideas and making them happen?
Well, I mean, first of all, to the whole painting thing, I mean, that's, kind of, started off, these are motion pictures. These are pictures that move, and my favorite director, David Lynch, he, talked about becoming a filmmaker because he liked painting and he wanted to figure out ways to make his paintings move, and so it kind of is the same thing. You're not painting a picture, but you are creating images that move. That's the whole idea behind motion pictures. The biggest challenge, I mean, so Marrow was the first film that I made that had anything even slightly resembling a real budget behind it. We had $250,000 to make that film. Before that, I was making films for like $20,000, $30,000, and I think the biggest challenge in getting your ideas on the screen is just getting the people together who share that passion with you, who want to do it, who want to help that thing come to life, but also who are good at it.
Right.
Because I fully support people going out and making films with their buddies, making films while they're in school or whatever, and maybe they don't have the expertise or the knowledge yet to do the thing, but they are doing it, which is better than doing nothing, and I fully support that. But I've always kind of been a hard ass about the quality, and so I didn't want to take people who didn't have the ability to do it well. So starting off with no money, like the first film I made, we had $0 for. The second one, I think we had $2,000 to make it. Is finding the people who are talented and who are skilled, but who are also willing to come out and do this basically just to be doing it, because no one's making a living off of these things, at least at first. On the films that I was making at first, no one was making a living off of those. The feature film that I directed before this, Silhouette, I think I was paying my crew like $50 a day.
But you're paying them.
Yeah.
They can afford to drive there.
But these are amazing crew people. These are crew people who have worked on like much bigger things. So, like sitting down and convincing them like, hey, this is a project that you should come and work on, that I would love to have you on. That's the hard part. But I believe that if you're just skilled, if you're gifted, if you have the ability to create a good story, to tell a good story on paper, then you can have the ability to get people to come in and do these things for lower rates or for even no rates, because at the end of the day, I know people get jaded, especially people who work crew. Almost any crew person I know who's like post 40, who's been doing this for a career all their lives, are so jaded by it. Because it's a rough industry. But if you're able to create something that is able to reignite that spark in even the most jaded person that made them want to do this in the first place, then you're on a good path. You're on a good track. But the trick is making that thing. The trick is writing that thing. And in my opinion, the way to do that is to be open to criticism. I know I've met a lot of people who aren't open to criticism. They get offended if you tell them they could be doing something better or whatever, and I think that's silly. So for instance, not to talk too much, but the first time I tried to make a film, I had no money and really no talent. I didn't know what I was doing. And one of the guys I was making it with, his brother, had gone to NYU and studied film, and never really did anything with it, but knew what he was talking about, knew film theory, knew all the aspects. And we shot for like 3 days or so. I got 3 days worth of footage, and the guy who was acting in it, and then his brother, who was the film school graduate, came over to my place. They watched the footage, and I don't think he was doing it to be mean, but just like knee-jerk reaction, he kind of laughed at one of the scenes, and I was like, oh, okay, I heard that, I felt that. And then we went outside, and he was like, and he asked me a question that has like lingered with me for a long time and stuck with me when anybody ever asks me for my opinion on something. He said, "Do you want me to be nice, or do you want me to be honest?"
Okay.
And I said, "I want you to be honest." And he said, "Okay, well, your instincts are good. I can tell that you have an idea of what's going on, but you don't really know what you're doing yet. You need to take some more time to learn what you're doing." So I immediately scrapped that film, stopped making it, spent a few years just like, working on sets and, reading books and watching videos and things of that nature until I felt I was, at least mildly competent enough to do something. And I still wasn't. But when I made the first one, that was more than anything my film school, where I learned my strengths and I learned my weaknesses, and then learned how to kind of sharpen that blade afterward.
No, I love that. And then you got, so before making a film with a $500,000 budget, how many reps did you get in? Shorts, features?
$250,000.
Sorry.
I haven't quite hit $500,000 yet, though. Hopefully soon. But let's see. I think I made before that I did 3 features. One which again was like kind of my film school. Actually, honestly, I'd say the first 2 were my film school. I made like a little thriller. I had some distribution offers on it, but I wasn't proud of it. I didn't want it to get out there, so I never really did anything with it. The second one was just like a straightforward drama, which was an experiment for me because that wasn't really my thing, but I love mixing the horror and the drama. So on that one, I was kind of getting my experience handling drama. The third one, which is called Silhouette, was the first feature. First of all, I had money for it, not a lot, but 25 grand, which is more than I had before.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had really sharpened my skills by that point. So we took really passionate and really talented actors and really passionate and really talented crew. And I said, hey, none of us are going to make a lot of money on this, but I think it's going to be a cool film. I sent them all the script. They all loved it. So I was able to kind of get them together to form this team to shoot for 12 days maybe, give or take, but over 3-day weeks, because everyone has jobs, everyone has things they're doing. And then I'd made 2 short films before that. Birthday Girl, which was, I think, the one that really started having people maybe take me a little seriously.
Okay.
It's just a little short 10-minute black and white film called Birthday Girl that had been in my head for a long time. And then I made a drama short film called Who We Were Before, which, was just an experiment, again, on the drama side of things. But so I guess five films total, plus producing another one called The Woman Under the Stage. So 6 films total as a producer before finally being able to do Marrow for something resembling a real budget. 250, still not a lot to work with, but a hell of a lot better than what we were doing before.
I love it. Final thoughts, something you want to share with filmmakers of the world?
Yeah, no, I mean, the final thought is, I see people on a regular basis and they're, coming up with the reasons why they can't make a film. They're coming up with the reasons why it can't be done. And I mean, there's always somebody talented and passionate, who's willing to come and do you a favor, who's willing to come and do something for you. If you're nice about it, don't get mad at people when they say that they don't want to come work on your no-budget film. Some people just don't, and you can't treat them poorly because of it.
Right.
But this guy sitting right over here, on my second feature film, I met him, and he came out for me. He worked for free. He started off as a sound guy, and then he eventually, when our DP couldn't be there anymore, he took over in that department. He edited the film, he did the sound design on it, and has just kind of been there with me since then, all the way up to Marrow, where he's now the sound guy on that. He's edited that. He's a godsend. Yeah. And there are people like that in the world who will help you get your thing done. You just have to be receptive to criticism, and B, you have to have a natural eye for that talent. And I think that, you know, where that comes from is looking at films that you love and saying, like, what makes this film so good? Why do I love this film so much? And if you can't look at your film and say the same things, you've done something wrong. So, like, you know, actors, again, like, you might audition 100 actors, you know, for this thing, and maybe they're not all quite so good, maybe they're not what you're looking for, but if you keep going and you're not willing to settle, you will eventually find somebody who's willing to come and work with you for what you're able to offer, whether that thing that you can offer is a little bit or it's nothing. If there's something in it for them, great real material, whatever, you're gonna find someone.
Nice.
So I guess my advice to filmmakers who are coming up and starting with nothing is, don't settle on something that you know is wrong just because you feel like you don't have the resources to make it happen. Because if you believe in the thing enough and you put in the work to make sure it's as good as it could possibly be, you're going to find those proper resources. You're going to find those right people. And, you know, the thing might have its budgetary constraints that are going to hold it back. You know, maybe you didn't have $1 million to work with. But if you do it right, and you do it with those people, and you don't give up, then you're going to make something where people can see the talent that you have. Even if there are restraints on it because of budgets.
There always will be.
Always will be.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. That was great.